She slapped the single dad at work. Her father walked in and took a knee. She slapped him across the face in front of the entire floor. Brooke Calloway's palm connected so hard that the sound cut through the open plan office like a starting gun. And 37 people went completely still. "You think you can embarrass me?" she said. Her voice was shaking, but not from guilt. From fury. The kind that comes from being told no by someone who isn't supposed to say it. "Do you have any idea who my father is?" Nathan Cole did not raise his hand, did not step back. He stood exactly where he was, one side of his face going red, eyes level, breathing steady. He had a stapler in his left hand because he'd been at the supply closet when she'd found him. He set it down on the nearest desk, quietly. The way you set something down when you want both hands free but don't intend to use them. "I know who your father is," he said. "It doesn't change what I told you." Brooke stared at him. Around them, not a single keyboard clicked. Not a single phone rang. What Brooke Calloway did not know was that the man she'd just struck in front of the entire Meridian Group analytics floor had rebuilt his life from the kind of loss she couldn't imagine, and had never once asked anyone for credit. What she did not know was that Nathan's daughter had drawn him a picture that morning of the two of them standing on a mountain, and he'd folded it into his breast pocket and carried it here. What none of them knew, not Brooke, not her friend Sienna Park, who was already typing on her phone, not the 35 other people watching, was that within the hour, the man Brooke had invoked as a weapon would walk through that door and do something no one in that room expected. 14 hours earlier, Nathan Cole had been awake at 4:50 a.m. because his daughter had a nightmare. He heard her before she knocked, the small, quick footsteps from the room across the hall, the way they always sped up the last 3 steps. He was already sitting up when Maya pushed the door open. 6 years old, hair in 2 braids that had survived sleep better than he ever did. She was holding the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 2 weeks old, and her face was the particular face of someone who had been somewhere frightening and was glad to be back. "Dad." "Yeah, come here." She climbed in. He pulled the blanket over both of them. For a while they just lay there in the dark, her small back against his ribs, his arm around her, the elephant wedged between them. "You okay?" he asked. "There was a giant," she said. "Giants aren't real." "You always say that." "Because it's always true." She was quiet. Then, what if it was a metaphor? He looked at the ceiling. She'd started using the word metaphor 3 weeks ago, after her teacher used it to explain something about a poem. She'd come home and deployed it approximately 9 times a day since then. "Then the metaphor giant can't get you either," he said. "I'd stop it." "How?" "The usual way." "What's the usual way?" "You outlast it," he said. "You stay bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and you don't let it make you mean." She thought about that. "That's not very exciting." "No," he agreed. "But it works." She fell back asleep inside of 10 minutes. He didn't. He lay there doing the math he always did at 5 a.m., rent current, car payment 2 weeks out, Maya's after-school program fees due on the 15th. He'd taken the contract position at Meridian Group 3 months ago, after 18 months of piecing together freelance work after Claire died. The salary wasn't what he'd made before. Nothing was what it had been before. But it was steady, and it had benefits. And Maya's pediatrician took the insurance, and those 3 things together were worth more to him right now than any title or any corner office. He got up at 5:30, made her lunch, left her a note on top of the sandwich bag. "The giant can't get in." I locked the door. "Love, Dad." Put it all in her backpack. She woke up at 6:45, found the note, and laughed. By 7:15 they were in the car, Maya eating toast, Nathan navigating the commute. She asked him 3 questions in the first 10 minutes. Why do dogs dream? Can you run a country with only nice people, and do fish know they're wet? He answered all 3. Not quickly, slowly, the way she liked. He dropped her at school at 7:52, watched her walk in without looking back, because she was 6 and the world was hers. Then he drove to Meridian Group. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Brooke Calloway had been at Meridian Group for 8 months, which was 7 months longer than most people expected. She was 29, the daughter of Elliot Calloway, founder, majority shareholder, and the reason there was a Meridian Group at all. And she had been given the title of Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships without the inconvenience of earning it. She had a corner office on the 14th floor. She had an assistant who was afraid of her. And she had, over the course of the last 3 months, developed the fixed belief that Nathan Cole was a problem. The problem was not his work. His work was, by every measurable standard, excellent. He'd restructured the client analytics pipeline in his first 6 weeks, identified a data modeling error that had been inflating one division's numbers by 12% for 2 years, and done both without making anyone feel stupid. His team, such as it was, 4 junior analysts who'd been demoralized under the previous contractor, had visibly changed. They arrived earlier. They asked more questions. One of them had told his manager it was the first time in 2 years he'd actually looked forward to coming in. The problem was that Nathan didn't defer to her, not rudely. He was never rude. He listened when she spoke. He asked clarifying questions. He was unfailingly professional. But when she was wrong, and she was wrong with regularity, in the specific way that people are wrong when they have authority without foundation, he said so. Carefully, clearly, without softening it into something it wasn't. Most people at Meridian didn't do that. Most people smiled and found a way to make her version of a thing sound plausible enough to proceed. Nathan did not. She had tried 3 times in the last month to have him removed from the project. Each time, the data team lead, a quiet man named Robert Cho, had declined. His contract runs through Q3. Robert had explained the last time. And his output is the best we've had in 2 years. If you want to escalate, that's your call. But I'd want to be in that conversation. She had not escalated. Not yet. But on a Tuesday morning in March, Nathan presented a revised timeline to the department head that directly contradicted the one Brooke had submitted the previous week. He hadn't framed it as a contradiction. He'd framed it as a correction of a data input error, which it was, technically. But the result was that her timeline was wrong, and the room now knew it. She waited until the meeting ended. She followed him to the supply closet. She told him exactly what she thought of people who went around her. She told him what happened to contractors who made senior directors look incompetent. She told him, once more, who her father was. He told her, calmly, that if the timeline had been wrong, it needed to be corrected, that he'd done it in the way least likely to embarrass anyone, and that the conversation they were having right now was not one he intended to have a second time. She slapped him. 37 people saw it. The floor stayed silent for 4 seconds. Then it didn't. Not loudly, people didn't erupt. It was more like a held breath letting itself out, one person at a time. Keyboards started up again. Phones got checked. But no one quite looked away from Nathan either, because everyone was waiting to see what he would do next. He did nothing dramatic. He picked up the stapler. He walked back to his desk. He sat down. He put his headphones on, not to avoid the room, just because he had work to do, and the work didn't stop because someone had put their hand across his face. Sienna Park, Brooke's closest friend and deputy on the partnerships team, crossed the floor in 4 quick steps and said something to Brooke in a low voice. Brooke's jaw was set. She was shaking, but it wasn't remorse. It was the specific vibration of someone who had gone further than they meant to and was trying to decide whether to own it or double down. She chose neither. She walked back to her office and closed the door. Robert Cho appeared at Nathan's desk 7 minutes later. He sat in the empty chair beside it without asking. "You okay?" he said quietly. "Yeah. I saw it happen. Most of the floor did." Robert was quiet for a moment. "I need to know if you want to report it." Nathan pulled his headphones down, looked at Robert. Robert was 61, had worked at Meridian for 11 years, and had the expression of a man who had been waiting for something like this and was angry it had arrived. "Let me think about it," Nathan said. "Okay." Robert stood. "The answer is yes, for what it's worth. But it's your call." He went back to his desk. Nathan sat for a moment, one hand resting on the keyboard, not typing. Then he reached into his breast pocket and unfolded the drawing. Maya's mountain, 2 stick figures, a sun that was slightly too large. He looked at it for a few seconds, folded it back, put it away. He opened his incident log template. He had a system for documentation. He'd built it years ago, when he learned that the difference between a story and a record was specificity, time, location, exact words, witnesses. He started typing. What Nathan did not know yet was that at 9:47 a.m., 40 minutes after the slap, a black car had pulled into the Meridian Group parking garage, and that the man who stepped out of it had not been told he was coming here today. He'd been called. By Robert Cho, who had Elliot Calloway's direct number because he'd worked with Elliot Calloway since before Brooke was old enough to read. The man in the black car, Elliot Calloway, 71, the reason there was a Meridian Group, had listened to everything Robert said without interrupting. Then he'd said 3 words. "I'll be there." He arrived at 10:02 a.m. Nathan didn't know Elliot Calloway had entered the building. He was at his desk, finishing the incident documentation, when he became aware that the floor had gone quiet again. Not the quick, startled silence of before. This was slower. The kind that radiates outward from a person who carries a certain kind of gravity. He looked up. Elliot Calloway was 71 and looked like what he was. A man who had built something large from nothing and knew exactly what that had cost. He was wearing a jacket over a collared shirt, no tie. The way men dress when they don't need the performance. His hair was gray. His eyes were the kind of level that doesn't waver. He was walking straight toward Nathan's desk. Around the floor, 20 people watched without pretending not to. Elliot stopped at the edge of Nathan's workspace, looked at him directly. "Nathan Cole," he said, not a question. "Yes." Elliot pulled the chair from the adjacent desk and sat down. Not across from Nathan, beside him, turned slightly toward him. "The way you sit when you want someone to know you're not here to interrogate." "Robert Cho called me," Elliot said. "Okay," Nathan said. "He told me what happened this morning." Nathan didn't say anything. Elliot leaned forward slightly, put his elbows on his knees. He looked at the floor for a moment, then back up. "I'm sorry for what my daughter did. That's the first thing I want to say to you, and I want to say it plainly. There is no version of what she did that is acceptable. Not in my building, not in any building, not anywhere." Nathan was still for a moment. "I appreciate that. I'm not finished?" Elliot's jaw was tight. "I want to ask you something, and I'd like an honest answer. Okay. Is this the first time something like this has happened? A pause. Not because Nathan didn't know the answer. Because he was deciding how much to give. Not the first incident, he said. First, physical. There's a documentation trail going back to the end of January. Elliot looked at him steadily. You documented it. I document everything. Old habit. Whose habit? Another pause. I ran my own firm for 6 years before I came here. You learn to keep records. Something shifted in Elliot's expression. Not surprise, exactly. More like a resorting. The look of a man who came in believing he understood the situation and is now understanding it differently. What kind of firm? Elliot said. Data architecture. Business intelligence systems. I built it with 2 partners. Grew it to 43 people. Sold it in 2019. Around the floor, people were not pretending to work anymore. Why are you here? Elliot said quietly. Not cruelly, genuinely. As a contractor, at analyst level pay. Nathan looked at him. My wife died 18 months ago. I needed to be home by 4 o'clock every day. I needed job security that didn't depend on my own revenue cycles. And I needed to not be in charge of 43 people while I was also learning how to be both parents to a 6-year-old. A beat. Your contract position had good hours and real benefits. That's why I'm here. The floor was completely silent. Elliot Callaway looked at Nathan Cole for a long moment. The look of a man doing a kind of internal accounting that doesn't show on the surface. Then he stood up. He extended his hand. Nathan looked at it, then stood and took it. Elliot shook it once. Firm. Then he did something no one on that floor had ever seen Elliot Callaway do in 11 years. He kept hold of Nathan's hand, and he went down on one knee. Not a proposal, not a performance. A gesture, old-fashioned, deliberate, the kind that costs something. He looked up at Nathan from that position for exactly 3 seconds. Then he stood back up, still holding Nathan's hand, and said, I'm asking you to forgive my daughter. I'm not asking you to excuse what she did. I'm asking you to give me the chance to make this right, professionally, formally, and completely. The room was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system. Nathan looked at him. At the hand. At the face of a 71-year-old man who had come here not to protect his company or manage a liability, but because someone who shared his name had done something wrong in a room full of witnesses. And that meant something to him. I accept the apology, Nathan said, and the offer. Elliot nodded once, let go of his hand. Then he turned, walked across the floor, and knocked on the glass door of the corner office. Brooke looked up. Elliot opened the door. We're going to talk, he said. Now. He closed it behind him. The floor let out a breath. Sienna Park was completely still at her desk, phone face down. Robert Cho was watching the office door. 3 junior analysts were looking at each other with wide eyes. Nathan sat back down. He picked up his headphones. Then he put them down again and took the drawing out of his pocket instead. Unfolded it. Looked at the mountain, the 2 stick figures, the oversized sun. Maya had written something at the bottom he hadn't noticed this morning. In her round 6-year-old letters, P.S. You are the tallest. He sat with that for a moment. Then he got back to work. By Thursday of that week, Brooke Callaway had been formally removed from her senior director role pending an HR investigation. The decision came from Elliot directly, over the objection of 2 board members who felt the optics warranted a quieter approach. Elliot overruled them in 11 words. She hit an employee in front of 40 people. There is no quiet approach. Sienna Park received a formal written warning for her role in 3 months of documented hostile behavior, the emails, the meeting exclusions, the coordinated campaign to have Nathan removed from the project. She did not lose her job. But the warning was in her file, and everyone knew it was there. Robert Cho was named interim head of a newly created analytics division. His first hire was Nathan Cole, not as a contractor. The offer came in a plain envelope on Nathan's desk on a Friday morning. He opened it, read it twice, looked at the number for a while. Then he called Maya's school and asked to speak to her teacher. "Could you give her a message?" he said. "Tell her Dad said the giant didn't get in." The teacher paused. "Should I write that down?" "She'll know what it means," Nathan said. 3 months later, on a Saturday in June, Nathan and Maya were at the park near their apartment. She was on the climbing structure, the tall one she'd been scared of since last summer, and she was near the top now, moving hand over hand, with her tongue between her teeth in concentrated effort. He stood below. Not because she needed him to catch her, because she liked knowing he was there. She made it to the top, turned around, found him immediately in the crowd the way she always did. "Dad, I see you. I'm at the top. I can see that. Are you proud?" "I've been proud since you got out of the car," he called back. She laughed, turned back around to look at everything from up there. He watched her. The park was full of Saturday noise, other kids, other parents, someone nearby with a speaker playing something quiet. He had his jacket on because the June mornings still had some edge to them. The drawing was in his breast pocket, folded and refolded so many times the crease had gone soft. He'd put a new one in last week. She'd drawn him at his new desk, with a sign on the wall that said, "Boss," which she'd spelled correctly on the third try. He kept both. She came down eventually, found him, grabbed his hand. "Can we get the ice cream?" she said. "From the truck." "Yeah, we can get the ice cream." "Can I get the big one?" "You can get the medium one." "What if I argue?" "Then you'll get the medium one and learn an important lesson about negotiation." She thought about this seriously. "Okay, medium." They walked toward the truck, her hand in his. She was swinging their arms slightly, which she did when she was happy and didn't know she was doing it. He didn't say anything about it. Some things don't need naming. Some things you just carry quietly in your breast pocket, next to the drawing of the mountain. You don't ask for credit. You don't need the room to go silent. You just outlast the giant. And you don't let it make you mean.